everybody. Today we're going to take a look at my favorite, and I'm serious when I say this, my favorite arcade game of all time. This is 1984, was released in the arcade. When it was released on the Amiga, we're going to find out 1990. So this is an Electro Coin release, which I think is interesting. Um, and of course, this is Universal's Do Run Run. Uh, so we're going to give it a shot. Boy, they're not showing those high scores for very long, are they? Must be I don't know. Anyway, as you can see, there's a pretty hefty bezel on this. And there's a couple things that are also different. You know, all of the Do games are pretty famous for their good control. Um, this game is not. It doesn't have the turns. You can't execute quite as snappily as you can now. That doesn't excuse my poor play. One of the big pieces of strategy in this game is using those logs to really kill all the enemies at once. You know, because you get a score multiplier and all that stuff. And when you're not sure where you are on the horizontal plane, it becomes much more difficult. Now, see, I just tried to turn right there, and it did not accept my turn. We're going to give this another shot, though. Oh, hey, the purple bezel went away. See, in the normal game, I wouldn't have been able to make. I don't even know how that enemy got to me, because he shouldn't be able to go through that log. It's like the logs are semi oh, what's the word where you can go through it? Permeable? I don't know. I'm getting a lot more color variation as we go along here. Now, I'll tell you some other things about this game that are really neat that I like. There are multiple ways to accumulate points. Of course, you know, you can destroy the enemies with your ball. That's a Mr. Do standby. I think in every game except for Castle, he has a ball. So you throw the ball out there. The more times it bounces around before it hits an enemy, the more points you can get, up to 3,000 points, as you can see. Another way you can win is by collecting all of these objects. Now, what adds an extra dimension to this is that when you surround the fruit with your little white square, as you can see, it changes from cherries to lemons to pineapples. And the pineapple is the highest fruit as far as points go, and you're making, you know, I think it's like 250 points versus 50 points if you just, I'm not exactly sure of the points, but it's a lot more points if you do that. And of course, if you completely eat all of the things on the stage, the remaining enemies will be defeated, and you'll progress on. So normally when I play, it's kind of a combination of everything. Normally I end up killing all the enemies on the stage, but it looks like in this case I may not. It's going to be just easier for me to just grab that last pellet and go. Oof. Yeah, you've really got to have, if you want to play this game well, you got to be able to execute really snap movements, and this particular port doesn't really allow for that. But this is a port of an arcade game that came out, you know what, 6 years beforehand. So it probably was done as sort of a cash grab. I will say that they did a very good job. These sprites have all been redrawn. Everything is totally new. These aren't just, you know, taking the arcade sprites and plugging them into the Amiga, which, I mean, even with OCS hardware, they could have done that, I feel like. But these are, all the animations are new. The score, place is done really well. The way that the extra looks is nice. It really looks very close to the arcade game. I guess, they did have issues with something related to technology, or they wouldn't have put this bezel up. Um, I don't know if it had to do with the resolution of the original title, although, it's a standard JAMA game, I'm pretty sure. Um, I'm not sure, but the stages are all, they're the original stages, which is nice. If you were looking for a port of, your favorite game, you'd want it to be as close to that game as you could be. And, of course, really my biggest problem with this is the log, the way that the logs work, the way that the logs don't work, um, but I've kind of found my sea legs here. In the original arcade game, I think I've scored about 200,000 is my all-time greatest game. This scoring seems to work the same way. See, that's a total waste of a log. Okay, and yeah, there were some shortcuts taken for this, but this is basically how the screen looks when you finish a game, the high score screen. The original screen has Mr. Do running across to where your name is, and then this little screen pops up, and it's a little bit more colorful, but on the whole, it's a pretty, it seems like it's a pretty decent port of a fantastic arcade game. If you have not played this game, you should seek out the MAME version first and play it. This is the only port that I know of. I'm just going to start another game because that's annoying to look at while I talk. This is the only port that I know of for any system. Now, I'm sure that there was a C64 port. I'm less sure, about the Atari 8-bits. By 84, their influence was already waning, and that's when this game came out in the arcades. 1984 is my favorite year of arcade games of all time. So many great titles. Tapper, I think, is 84. Of course, Do Run Run. Mr. Domino Man. I almost said No One Can Stop Mr. Domino. That's a PS1 game. Anyway, if you take a look at the titles that were released in 1984, you'd be surprised at how many heavy hitters there were. Which is funny because 83 was supposedly the year of the big video game crash, and then after that, everything kind of, if the caricature is that, after the crash in 83, everything went towards home video games and arcades were dead until Street Fighter. But if you look at, any list of releases from the mid 80s, you'll see that that's not the case at all. They may not have brought in the record-setting sums as far as revenue that the other, see, that's what we're talking about right there. If you can do that, smash all those, you're in great shape. But think about, the mid, of course, there were a lot of really terrible titles that were released in the mid to late 80s, really cookie cutter games. But Atari System 3, games like 720, there were some excellent games. They weren't all just RoboCop. No idea how I died there. No clue. So I'm just enjoying playing this game. It's the music, this theme sounds like the song. The first level, I don't know what that was all about, but that theme really does sound like it. So there's my last game over. Oops. Get rid of that. Oh, and so it goes. Do run. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Adios.